She said I could sleep with someone else tonight and you'd still come crawling back because that's just who you are. She thought I was one of those simps. I just smiled and said we'll see. 2 weeks later she was calling from her friend's couch after getting evicted. The day my life took an unexpected turn started like any other Tuesday. I was in the garage of my auto restoration shop putting the finishing touches on a '67 Mustang when my phone buzzed. Another text from Ellie, my girlfriend of 3 years, asking when I'd be home. I typed a quick reply around 7 bringing dinner and went back to buffing out a scratch on the vintage car's hood. Let me back up and tell you about Ellie. We met at a friend's poker night where she walked in with the confidence of someone who could read every card at the table. Beautiful, sharp-witted, with a laugh that made everyone want to be in on the joke. I was hooked from the first hand she dealt. Our relationship moved fast, maybe too fast. 6 months and she moved into my house, a modest 3-bedroom I'd inherited from my grandparents, along with enough money to start my restoration business. The arrangement seemed perfect. I owned the place outright, so she contributed to utilities and groceries but paid no rent. She worked as a bartender at an upscale lounge downtown, making good money and tips while I poured everything into growing my shop. For the first 2 years things were great. Sure. We had our issues. She thought I worked too much. I thought she partied too hard, but the good outweighed the bad. Then something shifted. She started coming home later, picking fights over nothing, making comments that cut deeper than she'd ever done before. That Tuesday night I arrived home with Thai food to find Ellie dressed to go out, not in for dinner. Where are you heading? I asked, setting the food containers on the kitchen counter. Girls' night, she replied, applying lipstick without looking at me. Don't wait up. I glanced at her outfit, a dress that left little to the imagination and heels that added 3 inches to her already impressive height. That's a lot of effort for girls' night. Her eyes met mine in the mirror. Maybe I want to look good. Is that a crime? Never said it was. Just making an observation. She turned, a strange smile playing on her lips. What? You don't trust me now? Did I say that? You didn't have to. It's written all over your face. She stepped closer. You know what your problem is, Rob. You're too damn predictable. Too safe. You think owning this house in that little garage makes you some kind of catch. I kept my expression neutral, though her words stung. If you're unhappy, Ellie, we can talk about it. She laughed, but it wasn't the laugh that had drawn me in 3 years ago. This one had edges sharp enough to cut. Talk. That's always your solution. Talk, compromise, work things out. God, it's boring. As opposed to what? Screaming, throwing things, as opposed to passion, excitement, something that doesn't feel like I'm dating my accountant. I set down the plates I'd been taking from the cabinet. If I'm so boring, why are you still here? That's when she said it. The words that would change everything between us. Convened, mostly. Nice house, bills paid. She stepped even closer, her voice dropping. But you want to know the real reason? Because I could sleep with someone else tonight and you'd still come crawling back because that's just who you are. The room went silent. I looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered when the woman I fell in love with had been replaced by the stranger. We'll see, I said quietly. She seemed disappointed by my calm reaction. Maybe she wanted a scene, tears begging. Instead, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Don't wait up, she repeated, slamming it behind her. I sat alone at the kitchen table, the Thai food growing cold, and made a decision. It wasn't rash or emotional, it was clear-eyed and long overdue. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Hey, Uncle Frank. Remember that legal question I asked you about last month? I'm ready to move forward. Uncle Frank wasn't actually my uncle. He was my grandfather's best friend and the family attorney who'd handled my inheritance. The legal question had been about my options for removing Ellie from my home if things continued to deteriorate. After her latest stunt, I had my answer. The next day I went to Frank's office during my lunch break and signed the paperwork, a formal 30-day notice to vacate. Frank had advised me on the specific requirements for our state, where someone living in a residence for over 2 years could claim certain tenancy rights even without a formal lease or rent payments. We prepared properly, documenting that Ellie had never paid rent and that all utilities remained in my name alone. The notice included an offer of $2,000 to help with her transition to a new place, which Frank assured me was above and beyond what was legally required but would help demonstrate good faith if things got complicated. Make sure you document everything from here on out, Frank advised. Take photos of the house's current condition, maintain an inventory of valuables, and consider updating your security measures. I nodded, thinking of my grandfather's watch collection and other heirlooms stored in the old mechanical safe in my office. The one that required a locksmith to change the combination, something I'd been putting off because of the expense. I'll take care of it this week. When I got home that evening, Ellie was still asleep, having come in sometime after 3 a.m. according to my security cameras. I took Frank's advice and spent 30 minutes photographing each room, documenting the condition of the house and making notes about specific valuable items. Then I left the notice on the kitchen counter where she'd see it when she eventually got up and headed back to work. My phone buzzed repeatedly throughout the afternoon, but I didn't answer. I had cars to fix, customers to satisfy, a business to run. I came home late, half expecting a hurricane of female fury. Instead, I found Ellie sitting calmly at the kitchen table, the notice in front of her, a strange smile on her face. "Is this supposed to scare me?" she asked, tapping the paper. "Because it doesn't. It's not meant to scare you," I replied, setting down my teas. "It's meant to inform you that you have 30 days to find a new place to live." "Right." She nodded, still smiling. "And what happens when I don't leave?" "You'll have to file for formal eviction, which could take months. By then you will have realized what a mistake this is and begged me to stay. You seem awfully confident about that." "Like I said, I know exactly who you are, Rob. The nice guy, the fixer, the one who forgives and forgets." She stood up, stretching languidly. "I'm going out. When I come back, we can talk about you ripping this up and forgetting your little temper tantrum." As she brushed past me, I caught her wrist gently but firmly enough to stop her. "Just so we're clear, I'm not having a tantrum. I'm setting a boundary, and in 30 days you'll be living somewhere else." She pulled her arm away. "We'll see," she said, throwing my own words back at me. That night I called a locksmith to come change the exterior door locks and the security system codes, making sure to keep one new key accessible in our agreed emergency spot outside as legally required during the eviction period. I couldn't do anything about the safe yet, but at least the house was more secure. The first week after serving the notice was tense. Ellie fluctuated between ignoring me completely and trying to act as if nothing had changed. Making dinner one night, suggesting a movie the next, I maintained a polite distance, sleeping in the guest room and spending extra hours at the shop. I documented each interaction in a simple journal, noting times she came home and any discussions we had about the move-out date. By the second week, her approach shifted to testing boundaries. She invited friends over for loud gatherings without asking, left messes throughout the house, and made pointed comments about how much work it would be to move all our things. I remained steady, cleaning up after her parties without complaint, but continuing to reference the move-out deadline in casual conversation. On day 15, I came home to find Ellie and a man I didn't recognize on my couch, drinks in hand, her laughter filling the room. The kind of laugh she used to share with me. "Rob, you remember Jason, right, from the lounge?" She gestured to the men who had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Can't say that I do," I replied, heading for the stairs. I had no interest in whatever game she was playing. "We're going out," she called after me. "Don't wait up." I paused on the stairs. "Just a reminder, 15 days left." Her smile tightened. "Still on that, clock's ticking." The next morning I woke up early and headed to work without seeing her. Around noon my phone rang, Ellie for the first time in days. "We need to talk," she said, her voice missing its usual edge. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Can you come home for lunch?" I agreed, curious about the shift in tactics. When I arrived, Ellie was sitting at the kitchen table, looking more serious than I'd seen her in months. "I've been thinking," she began, "and I realize I've been unfair to you." I leaned against the counter, saying nothing. "These past few months I've been lost, I guess, wondering if I was missing out on something. But last night, being out with Jason, all I could think about was how much better things are with you." "Is that right?" She nodded, standing up and moving toward me. "I don't want to leave, Rob. This is my home too. We've built a life here." "You've been living in my home," I corrected her. "There's a difference. That's not fair. Neither is telling your partner you could cheat on them and they just take it. Neither is bringing another man into their house to make them jealous." She had the grace to look ashamed. "I was trying to hurt you. It was stupid and childish." "Yes, it was. But we can move past this. Start fresh." She placed a hand on my arm. "I love you, Rob. I just forgot that for a while. 3 years ago those words would have melted my resolve. Hell, 3 weeks ago they might have. But now looking at the woman who'd called me boring, predictable, and worst of all spineless, I felt nothing but a calm certainty. "The notice stands," I said quietly. 15 more days. Her expression hardened. "You're really going to throw away 3 years over one comment?" "No. I'm ending 3 years because we're no longer good for each other. You don't respect me and I don't trust you. That's no basis for a relationship. Where am I supposed to go?" Her voice rose. "Do you know how hard it is to find an apartment in the city with what bartenders make? The $2,000 should help with the deposit and first month's rent." I checked my watch. "I need to get back to work." As I turned to leave, she called after me. "You'll regret this. A week after I'm gone, you'll be begging me to come back." I didn't bother responding. That night I came home to find several of her things missing. Clothes, some jewelry, her favorite books. Progress, I thought. Maybe she was finally accepting reality. The next morning, more of her belongings had disappeared. By day 20, about half her stuff was gone. I began to hope this might end without the drama she'd promised. I should have known better. On day 25, I came home from work to find my front door unlocked. Inside, the house had been ransacked. Drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, my grandfather's antique watch collection missing from the safe in my office. Despite changing the exterior locks, I hadn't been able to change the safe's combination yet. It was an old mechanical model that required a specialist to reset, and the locksmith I'd scheduled for the following week hadn't come yet. On the kitchen counter where I'd left the notice was a note in Ellie's handwriting. "Since you're kicking me out with nowhere to go, I took what I deserved. Don't bother calling the cops. It's not stealing when it's community property. Enjoy your empty house and your boring life." I stared at the note, then at the chaos around me. The anger I expected didn't come. Instead, I felt an odd sense of vindication. This childish, vindictive act confirmed I'd made the right decision. I called the police anyway. When they arrived, I showed them the eviction notice, explained the situation, and provided documentation of my ownership of the most valuable items she'd taken. For the watches, I had my grandfather's will, specifically listing them as bequeathed to me along with insurance documentation I'd filed after inheriting them. I also had the detailed home inventory photos I'd taken the day I served the notice, clearly showing the items in my possession. The officers were sympathetic and, contrary to what might happen in some domestic disputes, took the situation quite seriously. The combination of formal eviction documentation, clear proof of ownership through the will and inventory photos, and the substantial value of the watches, over $25,000 total, elevated the case beyond a simple domestic dispute to potential grand theft. The fact that she'd left a note essentially admitting to taking things to hurt me rather than believing they were rightfully hers didn't help her case either. "This clearly crosses the line from a civil matter to a criminal one," the officer explained as he took detailed notes. "The value of these items and your clear documentation of ownership makes this a straightforward theft case." I spent the rest of the evening cleaning up and further securing my home, arranging for an emergency locksmith to come change the safe combination that night despite the premium cost, and installing additional security cameras I'd purchased but hadn't yet set up. 2 weeks after the theft, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Rob. It's me." Ellie's voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "What do you want?" I asked, continuing to sand the car door I was working on. "I need help." A pause. "The police came to my friend's place. They're saying what I took was theft, not division of assets. They're talking about pressing charges. That tends to happen when you steal things that aren't yours. They were ours. We lived together for 3 years. Living in my house doesn't make my grandfather's watches your property, Ellie. We weren't married, so there's no community property here. Everything you took was mine before you moved in, and I have the documentation to prove it." She was quiet for a moment. "I can't afford a lawyer." "That sounds like a personal problem." "Please, Rob. I'm sleeping on Tasha's couch. I got suspended from the lounge because the owner, Kevin, is your friend and he found out about the theft report. I'm desperate here." There was a time when those words would have activated every rescue instinct I possessed. The old Rob the simp, as Ellie had implied, would have rushed to help, to fix, to make it all better. Instead, I said, "I'll make you a deal. Return everything you took, and I mean everything, and I'll tell the detective I don't want to press charges. That's the best offer you're gonna get. I sold some of it already. The watches, a few other things." I closed my eyes. My grandfather's face flashing in my memory. Those watches had been his pride and joy. "Then you better figure out how to get them back." "I can't. The guy I sold them to isn't answering my calls and not my problem. Rob, please. Her voice cracked. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but don't do this to me. I'm facing actual criminal charges here. You did this to yourself, Ellie. Actions have consequences. So that's it. After 3 years you're just going to hang me out to dry. I set down my sandpaper and gave her my full attention even though she couldn't see me. Remember when you said I'd come crawling back? That I was predictable. Well, here's something unpredictable. I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing peace, and that means I'm not choosing you. She began to cry then. Messy sobs that once would have broken my heart. Now they just confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't crying because she missed me or regretted her actions. She was crying because her plans had backfired and she was facing the consequences. Goodbye, Ellie. I said and ended the call. I never did get all my grandfather's watches back. The police tracked down some of them through pawn shop records and by monitoring online marketplaces, but 3 of the most valuable pieces had disappeared into the murky world of private collectors. Ellie eventually returned what remained of my things in exchange for me declining to press charges for the items they couldn't recover. A mercy she probably didn't deserve, but one I granted partly on Frank's advice to avoid a lengthy court process and partly for my own peace of mind rather than hers. I heard through mutual friends that she moved to another state to live with her sister. Occasionally she still sends messages on my birthday at Christmas, random times when she's probably had too much to drink. I don't respond. Some chapters are better left closed. As for me, the business is thriving. I've expanded to a larger garage, hired 2 more mechanics, and even started hosting restoration workshops on weekends. The house feels like mine again, decorated the way I want, peaceful in its order. Dating has been sparse but meaningful. I'm taking my time paying attention to red flags, establishing boundaries early. When I tell this story to potential partners, it's not with bitterness or anger. But as a matter of fact, this is what I've learned. This is who I am now. Sometimes I wonder if Ellie was right about one thing, that I was too predictable, too safe. But I've come to understand there's a difference between being reliable and being a doormat, between being kind and being weak, between loving someone and letting them walk all over you. That Tuesday night when she claimed I'd always come crawling back. She wasn't entirely wrong about who I was then, but she severely miscalculated who I could become. And that's the thing about people who underestimate you. They never see the steel beneath the smile until it's too late.